Welcome back, Mutantville players, to another Johnny Brento's vlog. Cha-ching. Lots to talk about today because this is day one, actually, although this will be maybe day two by the time you peep it, of the countdown for Respawner Online, meaning in a few more days I'm going to be releasing the final cut of the Respawner pilot. As some of you may know, Respawner was a web series that we shot a pilot for and ultimately decided to shelve instead of pursuing due to various things, which I'll get into some of that during the discussion this week, but I'm going to talk about Respawner a little bit on every vlog that I do this week, culminating in the Friday release on MVP Fridays with the sharing of the link where you can view Respawner online. Respawner was a very grandiose project. It was actually the first time that I sort of broke away from the traditional lineup or roles of each of the partners in Mutantville and decided to write and direct something. And, you know, it was kind of a growing pain for Mutantville Productions, I think, because formerly everything we did was written and directed by good old Uncle Strebo, and they tended to be really big projects, so you know you're talking about years of your life for each one of those projects, and then you know the kind of input that you get as a production partner or producing partner is very different than the sort of stamp that you can put on something as a director. And you know, after a while, I found that I really wanted to have something that I had created, you know, show up on screen, you know, and so ultimately. That's that, and then the confluence of events that just happened to coincide with my really wanting to get out there and direct, you know, culminated in the production of a short 1-minute test film, and then from there was a lot of buzz that sort of created. You'll be able to check out the test film if you follow my articles related to the Respawner countdown on Mutantville.com this week, because I'll share that test film right there. And in fact, the actual test film sort of plays beside the credits as the pilot episode of Respawner unfolds, but there's a lot of additional footage as well. But to summarize how that came about, we were filming Ghost, and for the first time we met Sylvia Burris, and she came, and I'm not even sure what her relation to the production was. Somebody obviously invited her, and you know, it turns out she was able to be a lot of help because she's a barber, and she was able to give several of our characters haircuts to keep their hair the right length, and also she helped out with the makeup, helped out with some of the makeup, and we got to know her through that. And she was trying to do acting a bit and wanted some help with a reel, and she just asked me to help her with a reel. I said, okay, we'll do something different than what you've got on your YouTube channel right now. And that something different in my mind was action or something sci-fi or, you know, horror or what have you. And I thought, well, you know, there's no budget, there's no time. Well, what could I do with visual effects, you know, to make something really cool and impactful? If it's just a few on screen for a few frames, I could probably pull something off pretty sweet. And there's a popular series of tutorials online. If you go to videocopilot.com, if you're interested in After Effects or any kind of visual effects, this guy Andrew Kramer, a working professional in the industry, gives these really in-depth tutorials that tell you how to do just everything from compositing explosions, muzzle flashes, to making someone's face turn into a demon. And on that note, I took that concept and just, I kind of like went to bed thinking about it and woke up with the complete concept for Respawner, and then even the drilled down how would we show this in a 1-minute clip for Sylvia's reel. So I just had her to come over, and I had our buddy Jeremy Mullis come over to shoot the footage while I directed, and it was really simple. It was all Sylvia. Actually, she was the only one that appeared in that film, except for a tertiary character that I played that basically shot her. So it turned out pretty snappy, really, I have to say, and lots of folks were like, when's this coming out? You know, like they viewed it as a teaser, even though it wasn't. So then in my haste and just zeal for the idea of doing it, I thought, well, hey, that is good. Why don't I just go ahead and do an episode? And I really crossed some folks' my partners at Mutantville kind of got that sort of secondhand that I decided to do that, and that was kind kind of uncool of me, I guess. But at the time, I wasn't thinking, oh, I should run everything by these guys, because traditionally that's how it had worked. You know, things were very different back then as far as our dynamics. So when I didn't do that, that created some hard feelings, and some harsh words were passed back and forth between Jamie and I. But eventually we worked it out, and he came out and helped on the episode of Respawner. I think actually Jamie actually shot most of that, or some of it. It was shot between he and Gio, and it worked out. But you know, being a first-time director, I made all the mistakes that a first-time director will make. Probably the biggest mistake I made was on scheduling, and I made too many folks sit around for too long. You know, but you live, you learn. Also, the location. I thought we really had control over that location, and as it turned out, we didn't. So we had to do a lot of scrambling for that. Makeup wasn't ready on time. Famously, the final appliance that Todd A. Britt created was never actually completely created until after the filming had stopped. So, I mean, it was lots of things went wrong, but still managed to get Todd out there to do makeups on Sylvia, and the demonic makeup looked good. It's just, it looked different every time, so there's continuity issues and whatnot, but still, the crux of the idea is there and is represented. In some cases, I had kind of miscast some folks, and I'm blaming myself, not anybody that helped with that, because everybody that came out, you know, played a character. Sylvia, Danny, Dave Tunick, Kathy Butler Sandvoss, sorry. Everybody that showed up really did a great job. I can't forget Alan Whitley and Michael Ruff and Donnie Christensen. It was awesome, man. It was really cool how folks kind of pitched in to get that done. And the weather was a real obstacle too, because we were shooting in a warehouse. If it's 95 degrees outside, it's like 110 degrees in a warehouse. So it was pretty rough. And so that said, I also did too many hours at one time. So the shoots were over long, and that was a problem. But eventually we got it done. All the while I'm shooting directors' vlogs, trying to keep everybody updated and enthusiastic about it, and that worked. It seemed to work. But it was just a real kind of coming of age sort of thing as a filmmaker for me, that whole experience. So even though we decided, you know, as a company not to pursue Respawner, the web series, I'm very proud of Respawner, and I would like I really still like the property. I like the character. I'd like to someday either make a feature film of that, or maybe do like a comic or graphic novel or a poser comic or something like that. I don't know if you guys are in the know, but paying someone to create a comic for you, like a annual size, like a, you know, combination where you have the whole story sort of in one book, you're looking at 30 grand. So clearly I could make a feature film for far less than that for Respawner. So, you know, who knows how that'll go. But presently I'm looking at what I could do myself, and some of the art that you're seeing on the Respawner fan page is me exploring how to design a Respawner character in Poser. You know, and I have my buddy over at Davlin Studios doing Poser animation and making his own films, and then I've got Donnie Christensen doing the Star Force 7. Although, just the level at which Donnie is trying to create, for me, it's just mind-blowing. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff he's done. It's very impressive, but at the same time, it's, you know, he's been working on that for 2 or 3 years already, and wow, it's just a mountain of work for one person to do. Even if you do have a bunch of render machines, you know, crunching those frames, as he likes to say. But my point is, where there's a will, there's a way. You know, Strebo said to me a couple times, "Oh, this project's just snake bit for us, blah blah blah." And I don't, you know, at the time, I think it was because folks really weren't getting along. At the end of, he and I weren't getting along. I wasn't getting along with Sylvia at the end of it. I was upset, but really, you know, at the end of the day, if I kind of meditate on it, any issues with the Respawner, they come back to me and how I set that shoot up. So on a personal level, I'm not upset with anybody. I'm able to eventually kind of get over any hurt feelings that I had, feeling that some folks tried to sabotage the screenings and whatnot, and didn't support it after the fact. You know, for every one person that I had that did that, I had like Kathy, for example, who came out to pretty much all the screenings and even dressed up like Sweet Vicious. And so, you know, it evens out at the end of the day. As long as there's somebody there to help you. You can't make these things by yourself. So in that, you know, I was disappointed in myself and the footage that I got on one level, but on another level, it was awesome because I came up with this concept and created these characters, and here they are represented on screen by actors. So that's pretty cool. So when it fell short, you know, I guess maybe I got my feelings hurt a little bit about it, and I was like, you know, we have this 1 or 2 showings, and that's it. I'm just gonna, like, you know, let it fade into obscurity. The end presentation of it's actually on the Tales from Unionville DVD, which hopefully each of you has 2 copies, which you bought at CreateSpace, so we get a bigger slice of the pie. But you can always find that on Unionville.com, CreateSpace.com, and Amazon.com if you're looking for it. And you know, we hope you'll pick up that copy, certainly, but we never do anything for money. It's making art. It's making art. That's the impetus. And so in that sense, Respawner, I look at it now with kind of a different perspective after a year or two's gone by from the production of it, and I'm like, wow, you know, I still have a lot of passion for this, and I'm hoping to do something with it. I don't know what exactly, except for I know for sure I want to share it with everybody for free on the internet, and that's what's going to happen this Friday. So I will be sharing that link in my Fridays with MVP article for you guys this week, this Friday. So I hope that everyone will take advantage of that, watch it, you know, leave a review at the site, and share it with your friends, because a lot of sweat and a little bit of blood and about $1,000 went into it. So, you know, we're very happy to finally share that with folks in a way that folks who maybe aren't able to get a copy of Tales from Unionville will be able to check it out. I'm just over the moon, really, about having that done, and I'm glad that I made the decision to go and do that. Even though at the time probably it seemed like to Jamie and maybe George as well that was kind of diversionary to the Ghost production, but ultimately Ghost got finished just the same, and Respawner got made. So, and I got some great experience. I learned some hard lessons, and I would, anything that I shoot today would be better than Respawner. Especially with regards to the organization and how the productions ran. So it was very worthwhile doing that, and I'm just pleased as punch. I'm chuffed to pieces that we got it done. And now, you know, I think even the folks that were in it and experienced some of those hard times can look at it and maybe with fresh eyes and just appreciate and be thankful that they were involved in it, because it's definitely something that's pretty cool. It's certainly one of the gorier short films, and you know, you could maybe argue, I would argue that everything that I wanted to do in the entire series, which I had planned for 8 episodes, I would argue that entire story is still encapsulated right there in the pilot, you know. So on that level, it's pretty cool. And then there's some neat little things like Matthew Ewald has a brief cameo in it, and actually shot a cameo myself, which ended up not making the edit, and I think that's probably for the best. But Stephen D. Tucker also had a cameo, which didn't make it. But you know, I'm just going to be sharing this footage with you guys, the extra behind-the-scenes stuff, the making of, the director's comment, vlogs and stuff from the production, highlighting those on the Unionville channel throughout the week, and just hoping folks can really get in the spirit of Respawner for the big release Friday. Now, that said, I think Respawner will be a great curtain raiser for Iron Man 3, which is coming out Friday, and you know, yours truly will be in a theater sometime around 4 o'clock watching that bad boy right after I watch Respawner online. And I hope you guys will do the same, because man, that film looks incredible. The first 2 really I just completely loved, and I expect more of the same for part 3. So how are you liking these vlogs every day? It looks like between Strebo and I this past week, Sunday was maybe the only day that didn't have some fresh content on the YouTube channel. I don't converse as much with the folks on the YouTube channel, but if you leave me a message, comment on one of these videos, I certainly will get back to you. It seems like most of those questions are for Stribo from his various educational series and movie reviews. One thing I have been thinking is that I definitely want to get back to providing my horror reviews for movies that you might not have heard of, that it might have just passed by and never appeared on your radar, particularly VHS or rare out-of-print films, which I have a lot of. Maybe since I today just shared a poster update with my recent haul of rare posters. I have a German poster for Countess Dracula. That's a really interesting film. That might be a film that's worth checking out. Perhaps me doing an in-depth the horror type review. I'm referring to like an old series of reviews I did called The Horror, and although there's probably several shows like that called that on YouTube, I'd like to get back to that kind of format where I really go in depth and talk about what makes that film different. And there's actually there's a lot of stuff about that film that makes it unique. Famously, the censors really wanted to cut it heavily, and somehow Hammer Studios, the chief at the time, worked some deal out with them where they didn't make them cut it. And to this day, for a film of that era, it's definitely got one of the biggest examples of nudity and gore that you see in any of the Hammer films. So, and also it had Ingrid Pitt, who was totally awesome, and come to find out, she was a replacement for another actress who declined the role at the last minute, apparently. But that's a really interesting film, and you don't usually see the vampires with the female twist if it's not freaking lesbians, which you can probably gather by that reaction. That's, for me, I think that's kind of a lame storyline. I think a lot of good literature has been ruined that way. I'm not a huge fan of the Anne Rice stuff, but I would be if all the vampires weren't gay. I just don't understand that. I'm like, why? What does that have to do with being an immortal? It's like it always comes back to that. And if sapphic vampire stories are your thing, great. But for me, that's not the case. So that'll take a movie that otherwise I would totally love, and turn it into something that I'd be like, doesn't quite get there for me as far as a piece of horror. These are just my personal preferences. I realize I don't represent everybody. But anyway, back to Countess Dracula, very cool movie. And by the way, you can actually, if you have a Prime account or if you want to rent it, you can watch it on Amazon.com. And there are obviously various places you can download it as well. Or you can purchase it on Amazon.com, I believe, for a reasonable price. So I recommend that one. Maybe that'll be one for a future subject. As far as the Brento's Budget Filmmaking podcasts go, I've still been working on those. I posted what in the series is episode 27 as a vlog, which I shot here in the vehicle, but I shared it with folks via the YouTube channel because when I posted it on iTunes, it doesn't seem, well, first off, it doesn't play back from Libsyn for me with the video for some reason. And also I noticed that episode has not shown up yet on iTunes. So I'm not sure if there's a problem with the way my video was created. I'll just have to look into that a little more. And also it took up like basically all of my space for 30 days. So I probably won't be doing videos as the norm for that unless I make them much shorter. So I do want to get to 50 with the Brento's Budget Filmmaking podcast before I stop. And then I've had some discussions with my good buddy Jay Bird, aka Jason Wheely, about doing a joint podcast with me of some kind. It would involve talking about movies, obviously, and Jay Bird's unique style of comedy, which I realize I don't bring the comedy quite so much, but I certainly have friends who do, and some of them unintentionally, like Todd A. Britt, because Todd hates everything. Yes, he does. Todd hates everything, yeah. And then also there's Jason Wheely, he's a hell of an impressionist, and I enjoy hearing some of his impressions of iconic horror characters from time to time. So hopefully after we get to 50 of these shows, I'll be able to put something together with Jason, and we'll do some shows, and I think that could be really fun. Great content for the YouTube channel. And, if I have more of that stuff going on, I can do less of these just straight vlogs, which I can imagine might be a little boring for some folks, depending on what your preference is, but I don't know. I enjoy Strebo's vlogs, which is why I decided to go ahead and try to help him out in the experiment of providing new content every day on the YouTube channel. That said, it can get redundant, and I probably talk about lots of the same things over and over and over, but that's just the way it is, as Bruce Hornsby says. If you want content every day, you know it's not going to be a real polished production. Moving right along to the week ahead. There's always a lot going on at Muniville, and this week is no exception. Obviously, with the impending release online of Respawner, that's one little bit of excitement, but also this weekend, my band, Absolute Zero, will be returning to the Smith Splash Music Festival at the YMCA Park in Albemarle, North Carolina. Our set is scheduled for 2 o'clock, which is a primo spot, and so I really appreciate the promoters having us back, A, and B, giving us such a preferred slot as that. So I dare say that'll be the biggest crowd around that time. Between 12 and 3 for sure is the biggest crowd at that. Last year, we approached it. We had just added a new drummer, Jeremy the Rook Mullis, who you've heard me talk about in various films he's helped out with and other Muniville events. And he had 2 weeks to practice with us. And we got it just together enough to play that show and play the Halloween show. We actually played 2 shows in one day back in 2011 when they had the Smith Splash the last time. They decided to reschedule last year so that they could have it in the spring, because it's really to benefit a charity to teach kids to swim. And unfortunately, the organizers, I mentioned in my vlog yesterday, lost a child, a young child, to drowning. And the whole idea behind this is to kind of take that tragedy and turn it into something that could, you know, do something good, teaching kids to swim and maybe preventing someone else from having that kind of an accident. So it feels good to be involved in something that's doing something for a positive cause. And not only that, Absolute Zero, you know, we're not an active band 365. We typically shun the bar experience because, you know, in my experience, if you're not paying covers, you never get paid, so it becomes kind of a pay-to-play scenario. Even if you're just paying for your gas to go somewhere, you're gonna have to pay for your gas, buy your food, whatever, and then probably not get like good appreciation or a good crowd. Crowds tend to follow the cover band, so there's that. And then there's the whole, just how hard it is to work with some band bookers, you know, like at various venues. They got a lot of bands like us trying to play there, and it becomes a hassle. And really, like, my reason for playing music is to have fun. I love it. I enjoy playing music. So if it becomes a hassle and like another job, you know, it loses some of the shine and some of the appeal. So that's what we've generally tried to avoid, you know, situations like that. So what we've done is just whenever anyone asks us, hey, we're doing this event, you guys want to come play? And surprisingly, for the last couple of years, that's happened. So we've been doing 2 and 3. I think we did 3 last year. We also played the fair. So we've kind of started looking at that as kind of like our regular schedule. So like, you know, this year we'll try to play the fair again. This year we'll play a Smith Splash. We'll play the Halloween party if they have it and we're invited. We'll play it, you know. So it's not going to be like the kind of thing that takes us completely out of filmmaking, because we all have other hobbies, and, you know, 2/3 of us have a job. So it's you know, it's something that, I mean, it takes work. It takes a lot of work to put a band together and play a tight set, especially if you're playing like an hour, like we'll do Saturday. You know, we've put 1 and 2 practices a week for about 2 months on this, and hopefully it'll show. That's what you have to do, especially if you're not the kind of band that's just playing all the time. So it is rewarding and fulfilling. That said, I will not mind having all the extra practices behind us for a while, but I'm sure that Saturday will be well worth the effort, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I think it's just going to be really, really cool. So you heard Strebo talking on his vlog yesterday about writing comic scripts, and I'm sort of the other piece of that. I'm going to try to illustrate some of those scripts with relation to Beautician the Movie Goddess, and do sort of a 3D posterized comic for whatever he comes up with. And I'm pretty excited about that. And then maybe even extend that to C for Chaos and also Respawner at some point. These things that we can do in-house within a reasonable time frame, I get really enthusiastic about them. With the pressure of the show being behind us, I also plan to put a hard date down to go over and get the C for Chaos footage on the drive and arrange that with Stribo so that at least that work can start. And as aforementioned, I'm also trying to, I didn't get it done last week, I'm trying to get Beautician the Movie Goddess Presents Night of the Living Dead sort of reformatted for DVD so that we can share those with you guys at the Fright Night Film Fest. Still up in the air whether I'm going to the Fright Night Film Fest or not. I want to go this year, but who knows if that'll be possible. We'll just have to see how things work out with Mrs. Johnny Brento, and if I can persuade her to let me go off. That's it. That's a nice long vlog for you. Looks like we've been talking for about 23 minutes here, so it's probably a good place to knock it off, and then I'll talk to you guys in probably 2 more days. But definitely check on mutantville.com daily, because I do plan to do a daily article for the countdown to Respawner, where I'll share behind the scenes stuff, and some of it will be never before released stuff, so be sure to check that out. Hope you guys have a great week.